Welcome to the Radical Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Generation to Generation, where you will be inspired by the past, equipped for the present, and prepared for the future as we engage in conversations with people from around the world. Hi everyone, today you have Andrew and Daphne from Generation to Generation. We're actually on holiday, so we brought our travelling kit with us, so you're still hearing from us, just from a different location. People over the years have talked to us about what we do, and they've often asked, how do you decide what you're going to do? How do you decide where you're going to go? Often asking how we even started the ministry and the things that we're doing. So we thought today we would talk a bit about how we decide what we're going to do, how we decide where we're going to go, how we do the things that we do. So we thought we'd talk a bit about that, because often when we talk to people one-on-one about this subject, they often are either surprised or in a pleasantly surprised way. So yeah, we thought we'd share that with you today. So around the world, as we've done conferences, a part of it, we talk about how, God's wanting to see a generation with a yes in their hearts, that their automatic response to the things that God asks us to do is a yes. So Daphne, do you want to share a bit about your perspective on this?
Yeah, but the whole ministry started on a yes. We didn't ask for a ministry. We never had a vision for a ministry. We never knew we had a message. We were just getting on with life. And very briefly, it all started because someone came to England and said, God has told me to ask you to speak in my church in Houston. And although I'd never done anything, I went, yes, okay, I'll do it. And a series of things happened after that. People asking us, would you speak here? Or would you do this? Or could you write that? And all the time just saying yes, but very nervous and definitely not knowing where the whole thing was heading. And so that was how it started. We never had a call to it. We never had a vision for it. We never set out to have a ministry. It was just a yes, yes, yes along the way. And I said to Jesus once, when people say, how do you have an international ministry, or how do you build an international ministry? I have to say, I don't know. And I said to Jesus, this doesn't sound too good. Me just keep saying, I don't know. And he said, it's quite simple, Daphne. You just had a yes in your heart and you just kept saying yes. So that has kind of formed the foundations of the ministry.
Right, so do we say yes to everything?
In life, no. I'm not talking about not having boundaries. I'm not talking about, being taken advantage of and letting people ride over us. No, I'm not talking about that. Boundaries are good. But when it's come to people asking us on the ministry front, and to a large extent in life too, when they have asked us, rather like the Macedonian cry, can you come over and help us? We've said yes. Because usually when people ask us, because they want the message, they need the message, they want us to come and serve them in some way, and so it is a yes.
Right, so we knew what God was asking us to do.
Right.
And so when it comes to that area, if people ask us to come and do something related to those subjects,
yes,
our automatic response has been yes, we would do it. Making a silly example, if someone came to us and said, could you come and teach us how to make ice cream? That's not what we've been asked to do. We know that's not our calling. We know someone's way better qualified to do that than us, so someone else can do that. And so that would be a no for us. But it's a silly example. But, what we're saying is that anything within the wheelhouse that God has given us, then our automatic response is a yes.
Yeah, and it is not... do we want to do it? Don't we want to do it? It is not, do we think we're able to do it even? It is a simple yes.
Right.
And it's kind of worked for us, really.
So do we take into account other factors before we say yes? So people might automatically think, okay, so someone's contacted you, they're in Australia, they want you to come, they send you an invite, and we say yes. Well, people will go, well, hang on, what about the finances, all that kind of stuff. So how do we deal with that side of things?
Well, that's also really quite simple for us, because when the ministry started, way before we even knew we had a ministry, somebody said to me, Daphne, never make finances a reason to say yes or no. And that has been in our DNA from that moment. In fact, it was Jesus that said to me, never make finances the reason to say yes or no. And I heard that so clearly that it's been in our DNA all the way through. Now, we have come under pressure to ask for a fee or to ask for payment or to make sure we're going to get our airfare paid before we go. Kind of a lot of pressure for that. But I have found it very freeing, because if you start to look in your bank account before you say yes or no, you are making your obedience dependent on your finances. So in a way, I think you are making your finances a god, because they are the ones that are determining whether you do a thing or not. Now, I want to make one thing really, really clear at the beginning. We have never been in debt. We've never had the money to do it, but we've never ended up in debt. And I think many people think that walking this out means getting a credit card and building up a debt. I mean, to coin a phrase, people say this is living by faith.
I saw what you did there. Talking about money, and then use to coin a phrase.
Oh,
anyway,
very funny.
Sorry, carry
very
on.
funny. You call it living by faith. I actually hate that, because I think we should all live by faith. But often people interpret that too. They get a credit card and they're just building up a debt. And it doesn't work like that. I mean, I hope people are not expecting us to come out with a formula for making this work, because we don't have one.
Yeah.
But I can only tell you how we've lived it and what the results have been.
Right. And we believe that, ultimately, if we're doing what God has asked us to do, that he will provide the means for us to do it. And so now, that's not to say that every time we've said yes, we've ended up doing that thing.
No. So
there are 3 very clear examples for us over the years where we've said yes to something and then that's ended up being a no. So if I'll talk about one example, and then you could talk about and I'll talk about Q8, you could talk about New York.
Okay, can I just say first that the principle we work on, which you're bringing into now, is while we're saying yes, we wait for God to say no.
Right, yes.
So we're assuming when we're saying this yes and we're freewheeling along that he's saying yes too. So we work on the principle of not is God saying yes, but is he saying no?
Is he saying no? Before we talk about these examples, we say about a family. So if you're a child, you go to your mum or your dad and you say to them, can I have some milk from the fridge? And so you might ask the first few times and they say, yeah, that's fine, yep. And then you get to realise, okay, my parents are clearly okay with me having milk from the fridge. Now, if you continue to ask them permission to have milk, they might get a little frustrated. It's like, you clearly know my heart is okay for you to go and have milk from the fridge. So eventually you just start helping yourself, and then you end up finding out the no. And they say you've had too much milk or something. So they then step in and say the no. And so we feel like it's similar with God. We should be at the point get to the point where we know his heart for us. We know what he's okay with us doing. And so we just start to operate in that freedom and then wait for him to bring a no to us.
And I would say that I see many times waiting for God to say yes is a way of saying no ourselves. Right. A number of people who say, well, I'll pray about it. Most cases, not all, think, well, that's a no then.
Right, yeah.
And it turns out to be a no.
It's a sort of polite way of them beating around the bush and not telling you the no. It's like, well, let me pray about it and then not get back to you about this one.
And I do wonder if God isn't saying, well, I've already told you yes, why are you coming back again? Because there's so much in his word that he tells us to do, right, that we don't have to keep running back to him. Can we do this? Can we do this? He said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. We don't have to ask him again and again, should we do it? So do you want to go into your example?
So one example, I love going to sort of off the beat places, locations not a lot of people go to or want to go to. So we got invited one time to go to Kuwait. I was early teens, and we said yes to an invitation to go there. Anyway, I started to feel a bit uncomfortable. There was something about it that didn't sit right with me. And so I went to both of you and said, listen, I don't think we should go to Kuwait. I don't know why, just something's not sitting right with me. So we started to explore with the local people, you know, what were they wanting? And often when we go to the local people and start asking more questions, we then discover why we had that no feeling inside of us. And they came back to us and said that they sent a list of things to us, and in the middle of that list was a point that I'm not going to say exactly what the point was, because that could be an issue for us going forward, but they said if you had done a certain something before, then the country won't let you in. Now, we haven't done anything
not illegal.
Illegal, we haven't done anything like that, but for that country there was something that they aren't overly keen on. I think that's enough said there. And so we then discovered, okay, we would have an issue getting in the country because of this point that that they've raised. And so that was why I had that no feeling going on. Otherwise, we could have got there, had a friendly chat with the people at immigration, and discovered we're then flying back to England sooner than we realised. So another example was about us going to New York.
Yeah, so we were going to New York, and again, your sister Daniela, she was early teens, I would think, and she loved going to America. So we're all heading to New York, and she's going, I don't really want to go to New York. I don't think I should be going to New York. And again, we're thinking, are you crazy? You always want to go to America. So I took a check with the person that we were going to, and I just emailed and said, we're looking forward to coming. You know, glad that God has asked you to invite us, or words to that effect. And emailed back and said, well, we want you to come. I'm not sure if he's wants us to invite you or not, but we thought we'd love to see you. And so we thought, no. Because one of our dependencies is that we are trusting that the people who've invited us have prayed about it. I mean, why would pastors and leaders ask us to go, and halfway around the world often, if they don't feel it's a God thing? So operating on this yes is very freeing.
Right.
Now, I'm kind of going to another point. Yeah?
So New York.
Oh, yes. So, sorry, I haven't finished the story. So, we knew we shouldn't go at that point. Now, the date that we would have been there would have been 9/11, and we would actually have been there when the Twin Towers were brought down. So again, that was a very clear no that God was saying, and made it known to us. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that important part.
Now you can go on to the next point.
Well, I think another reason why people don't have a quick yes is because they look at their own circumstances and start trying to decide according to them. So if God says, go to India or up the Himalayas, they'll go, I've got a mortgage, I've got a home, I've got children, I've got a job, I've got a career. I mean, they'll come out with so many reasons why they can't. And I know we talked about this before, but I think when we do that, we treat God like he's an idiot. Like, we're saying, God, you forgot something. When you asked me to go up the Himalayas in India and live up there, you forgot I had a mortgage, you forgot I had children, you forgot I had a career, and what did you think I was going to do about my house? We're actually treating him like he should be thanking us. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Andrew, for reminding me that.
Yeah, that slipped my mind.
Yeah. I mean, if you hadn't reminded me, what a mess we'd be in. And so having this automatic yes rules out all that, because you almost don't have time to think about it.
Yeah, when he asks you to do something, he has already considered your circumstances.
Yeah. He's coming to you knowing all of that ahead of time. So I think by having this yes in your heart, you're also stopping yourself bowing down to the idols of finances, bowing down to the idols of the obstacles you might see. And it is very, very freeing. And having this issue of finances or circumstances, I think we've got a great example of that with the tsunami, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that, for us, if we hadn't had this yes, there would be a ton of things we'd missed out on. And if we hadn't, if we had taken into our circumstances, or not just like inside our own house, but even outside external circumstances, if we had let them dictate what we did or didn't do, again, we would have missed out on so much. So one example is when the tsunami hit Southeast Asia. We felt like we should go somewhere, do something, let's mobilise a team, let's go and start doing some disaster relief. And
it was Boxing Day.
Yeah,
day after Christmas.
Boxing Day, and so we sent a message to people we knew in countries all over Southeast Asia, and decided whoever gets back to us first, that's where we're going. And so a friend got back to us from southern Thailand and said, we need you, come here. So now airlines had stopped flying people into those countries. They were flying people out, obviously, they need to bring people home, but they weren't flying anyone in. And so a lot of people could have looked at this situation and said, there's no way for us to go. They aren't flying people in anyway, so there's no way for us to get there. But we thought, there's always a way of making something happen.
And I said it was Christmas because nobody has any money after Christmas.
Right. So we thought, no, there has to be a way of making this happen. So we contacted the airline that we were flying with at the time, which was KLM in Holland. And we said to them, look, we want to go out to Thailand. We want to do disaster relief. We know you're not flying anyone out there, so we know your planes are empty going. So would you be willing to give us tickets there and back, plus space for our equipment? And we said we're a charity. So they got back to us and said, yeah, we'll do that. We'll give you free flights there and back, and we will let you bring 1/4 of a ton of equipment to go and help with the disaster relief. So, that's one example where we could have looked at the circumstances and gone, this is impossible. There's no way to make this happen. But because we don't think like that, we always think, okay, there must be a way of making this happen. And so we will push on whatever doors we have to push on until it's literally impossible for us to do something. We managed to go out there. All they asked of us was that we sent some pictures and a write-up so that they could let people know some of the things that the airline had done to help with the response of things that were going on out there. So we really encourage people, whatever it is that God asks you to do, don't let the circumstances, whether that's within your own house or around that situation, to deter you. Don't take that at face value. Really pursue it and try and think outside of the box so that you really, at the end of the day, if you couldn't do it, that you tried everything you could. But again, if God asks you to do it, he will make a way.
Yeah, and it's probably a no then.
Right.
But I think too, people will be saying, well, how does this work? How do you get your money? How does all this happen? And I can honestly say we've been asked that so many times, and the answer is we really don't know.
Yeah.
We just know that saying a yes is what God is looking for. And we heard a message by our friend Scott Volk the other day, didn't we? And he was talking about the word hineni, which is here I am.
Here am I. Yeah.
Here am I. And I think that's what we said, well, here am I. Let's go. And if we had looked at circumstances, finances, or anything like that at the beginning of the ministry, there is no way we would have left our town, let alone the country. So, I don't make it sound like we've got it all together and we've got it all right, but this is the only way we know how to do it, really. This is in our DNA.
And sometimes it feels like God turns up really last minute. I'm sure for him it's right on time, but for us it feels very last minute. So another example, we were going to speak in Kansas City at a conference.
Oh, yeah.
and we had like no money. I think we had
$10 we had between three of us for about 4 days.
For about 4 days. And so we had no money to do anything other than go to the hotel, because the people that invited us were covering those charges. So we go to the hotel, get taken, speak at the conference, back to the hotel, back and forth. That's all we had, because we didn't have the money to do anything else.
I think we had to pay for our own food at the hotel as well.
Okay. So that was our situation, and we were on the plane, and we ended up getting our seats changed. The airline changed our seats, moved us around to different locations, and you ended up sitting next to a guy, and you just got talking during the flight. And he was quite high up in the US Air Force. During the course of the conversation, it came out that we were Christians, and he was a Christian. And so as we are getting up to leave the flight, he stands up and pulls out his wallet and empties out all of the cash into your lap. And it ended up being just enough money to see us through the days that we were there. So again, sometimes it can seem very last minute. We've got just enough. We didn't necessarily need that money,
we did.
But in order to not really struggle, we needed a little bit of an injection. And so again, God showed up, dropped some extra cash into our lap right on the airplane as we were about to get off in Kansas City.
And I think that this yes can extend to more than ministry. Our home has a yes on the front door, and we've had people we know come and stay. We're a small 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. We've had 25 staying one time for 10 days for mission trips. We have people real needy come, and the whole house has been turned upside down. But we have to keep a yes on the front door for anybody Jesus sends. So like I said earlier, it's a very liberating feeling, really, because it takes all the stress out of everything.
Yeah.
From my perspective, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. It can provide some other stresses, but...
Like?
Well, if it...
Well, yeah.
I guess an example would be, for me, would be public speaking. And so I said yes to doing what we do. There were certain things within the yes that I wasn't comfortable with, and one was public speaking. And when I was really young, early teens, it didn't bother me. I kind of just did it. As I got to my late teens, then I hated public speaking. But my public speaking was a consequence of saying yes. Yeah. So I then had to overcome these things. And I think I was 16, and I agreed with this principle. Whatever God asks us to do, the answer is yes. I agree with it in every area except public speaking, where I started taking on the no. So 16, went to South Korea. We arrived on a Friday, and some people were in the hotel lobby to greet us. And one of them came up to me and said, "Hey, Andrew, I was talking to my pastor the other day, said you were coming to town, and we would love to have you speak in the church on Sunday." So it's Friday we arrived, and speaking on Sunday. So I did what the polite thing was, which was to say yes, because that's what we do. And so after she'd left, I then went to you and said, "You have to get me out of this. There was no way I'm doing this speaking."
And that's where my no came out.
And that's where your no came out. I said, "No, you will do this." And you also had a booking to speak somewhere that Sunday, so you couldn't speak in my place. I had to do this thing. And I think we had one of my older sisters on that trip with us, and she knew that if she said she would do it, that I wouldn't let her, because that's not what she does. She'd never done any public speaking. She was kind of saying yes because she knew then I would say yes and do it instead. So the agreement was that she would say something for a couple of minutes at the start, and then I would get up and carry on and give a message. So at the time, and so Saturday night, I didn't sleep at all. I think I had about half an hour's sleep, and that was just from exhaustion because I cried all night. And at the time, if I was nervous, I would ask lots of questions. So we got in the car Sunday morning, me and my sister, we were being driven to the church, and I started asking questions. And I said to him, how many people are there? And he said 6,000 people. At which point I realized asking questions was bad for my health. So I kept my mouth shut. And we get to the church, we walk in the back door, and I look around and think there's not 6,000 people, there's probably 3,000, so it's half as bad. But in this church, the guest speaker sits on the platform before they speak. So we get up onto the platform, I go to sit down, and as I do, I turn around, I look up, and there was a balcony. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's about 6,000 people here. And as me and my sister sat down, suddenly this peace came upon me, and I wasn't nervous at all. So I thought, let me tell my sister. I'm sure she'll be very pleased to hear that I am no longer nervous. So I leant across to her and I said, hey, I'm not nervous anymore. And so she leant over to me and said, I'm going to kill you. Because she was terrified. Anyway, the whole thing went very well. Everyone's very blessed. But just because you say yes, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything's
I think
going to be easy.
When I was saying it's easy to say yes, it takes the stress out the decision. But I would agree with you, the process often isn't easy. And I think because the process isn't easy, if you're struggling with your yes, no, you're going to end up with a no. Because, if you had to, in that moment, say yes or no, you would 100% have said no.
Right.
But because we have this yes principle, it overrides our struggles really and holds us in focus and keeps us going forward.
It makes us have to face the challenge, which is the other side of the yes. It's like you say, we're not trying to make up our mind, is it a yes in the moment? We've already decided we are just going to say yes to things if they're in the wheelhouse of what God has asked us to do, and then we'll deal with what comes afterwards.
And often there's a lot to deal with that comes after. I mean, when you've said yes to something and there's no finances, you just have to hold on. You haven't heard a no, we've heard a yes, and God will stop it if it's not it. And He's never let us down.
Right.
I mean, we've never been in a situation by saying a yes that we have looked over it and gone, oh my goodness, we should have said no. Have we?
Yeah. Not that I can think of.
No. So yes, I don't know that it's a totally different way of thinking, because I know there's others that do, but I would encourage people to start thinking this way, because your own flesh can get in the way so quickly with all the no's that rise up in us. And then we're praying, when we pray, should I do this or shouldn't I do it? We're actually praying through the idol of our no. We're just looking for God to say no, we don't want to do it, we're expecting a no, and we're not really open for the yes. So it's worked for us. Macedonian people said to Paul, come over and help us, and he went. He didn't send a list of requirements, he just went. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Certainly is. And we're going to sign off now and go and enjoy the rest of our break, our little holiday. But for all of you listening, figure out what it is God's asking you to do, and just say yes to whatever it is that comes along. And those things that He's told us to do in the Bible, well, they're already a yes. He's already told us to do them. So just encourage people, start to live out of a yes and wait for God to say no, and enjoy the adventure that it takes you on.
Yeah, I would say these podcasts wouldn't even have started if you hadn't had a yes.
That's true.
Because you didn't know how to do them, you'd never done anything with it. So these podcasts that we're doing now are a result of a yes.
And because of the situations we're in, we had to think of a new way of doing things, a new way of getting a voice out there for people to be able to hear from us and from friends around the world. And so we decided to start doing these podcasts. And they've only been going for a few months, and really appreciate those of you that are listening, those of you that continue to spread the word and share them. We've been fortunate that in the few months that we've been doing it, we've been able to hit numerous podcast charts in quite a lot of different countries. So this isn't, again, just down to us. It's people like you that are listening as well, helping spread the word. We appreciate it. May we all continue with our yeses and enjoy the adventures that God takes us all on. So thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we will catch you again soon. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode. If it inspired you, please rate us and subscribe on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast platform.